Hi, welcome back. Thank you for rejoining us as we're talking about wars and rumors of wars today. I say this every time, but it's important. You want to make sure you hit that subscribe button or bell or whatever it looks like on the platform where you're watching this to make sure that you're going to continue to get these updates and these episodes available to you, delivered to you, so that you don't miss a single one. We don't want you to miss any, and certainly I believe the Lord doesn't want you to either, because there is, in fact, something happening here right now. So we're talking about this problem between Russia and Ukraine today, and all of its many facets and tentacles that just reach out over across the entire world. Right now, we're going to talk about this gas pipeline, the Nord Stream pipeline, which you may have heard was damaged. There are two of them. One of them was operational. The other one is not operational. Nord Stream 2 is not operational, but it is filled with gas. And the first one was, in fact, operational. That was supplying Germany specifically and Europe more broadly with consistent supply of natural gas from Russia. So the very fact that this pipeline was damaged really beyond repair, it looks like. Certainly it's non-functional anymore. We've got natural gas bubbling up into the sea there and causing a huge environmental catastrophe. At a minimum, it will be a long time before it's fixed and operational. Chances are it looks like it will never be fixed and operational. And so this is a huge problem. What happened? Well, there were several explosions, and no one has yet taken credit for it, which is a little alarming in and of itself. Most of the time, the perpetrators of such problems like this take credit. Like, for example, I imagine if you are at least above a certain age, you know the group and even the person most responsible for the September 11th terror attacks against the Twin Towers in New York City. You'd say, oh, yeah, Al-Qaeda. Sure, Osama bin Laden. Well, why do you know those things? Well, you know it because they took responsibility. They were really eager to say, hey, we did that. They are our enemy. We are so powerful. We did that. But who did the gas pipeline explosions? No one's taking credit. And that, all by itself, should help us to understand that there's something else happening here. It's a mystery. Was it sabotage? Was it warfare? Was it self-induced? Right? Did Russia do it? If so, why? Why would Russia do that? We're going to look at an article right now taken from The Guardian. And it says the size of the Nord Stream blasts equal to large amount of explosive. And so all evidence is pointing to the fact that somebody did this on purpose. It was not an accident at all. From the article itself, we read, there has been speculation that many submarines might have been used to deliver the explosives. However, the amount of explosives that would have been necessary to cause such large blasts make this theory increasingly unlikely. Okay, but it's a possibility. Maybe some hostile foreign power sent underwater craft to deliver explosives, and then that's how it happened. The article goes on and says, instead, experts are... And first of all, I hope that none of us are blindly taking the word of experts anymore after the last 2-3 years. Let's just be real. Experts are just people, and people are pretty much always wrong. But in any case, experts are suggesting that maintenance robots operating within the pipeline structure may have planted the bombs during repair works. Well, did you catch the implication there? If they're maintenance robots who are working to repair and do maintenance on a Russian pipeline, well, that means that they're Russian operated, they're Russian controlled. Is it possible that Russia damaged its own pipeline? Well, the article continues. If this theory proves to be right, The sophisticated nature of the attack, as well as the power of the blast, would add weight to suspicions that the attacks were carried out by a state power with fingers pointed at Russia. Moscow, which is the capital of Russia, has repeatedly underlined its capability to disrupt Europe's energy infrastructure. All right. What all of that means is the reason that Russia would have done this, if it is in fact the one responsible, is as an act of war against Germany and Europe, because Russia knows that they get most of their kind of reliable carbon-based energy from Russia. So Russia's just like kneecapping its enemies, essentially. You know, you fight a big game, Europe, while you're all warm, but winter's coming. What'll happen if you have no gas to heat stuff? So that's a leading theory here. But then, of course, because warfare is complicated and we all live in a fog of war, certainly while it's going on, the article continues and says on Friday, Vladimir Putin blamed the U.S. and its allies for blowing up the pipelines, raising the temperature in the crisis. Offering no evidence for his claim, the Russian president said in a speech to mark the annexation of 4 Ukrainian regions that the sanctions were not enough for the Anglo-Saxons. They moved on to sabotage. Well, that elevates our discussion a little bit. Because you can read The Guardian or the New York Times or anything published by CNN or on and on and on. You can read to your heart's content from the corporate media all about who did it, what are the theories, what are the motives, why, he's so bad, we're so bad, everybody's so bad, whatever, right? That's not why you tune into this podcast. We are looking for what's happening underneath. Why would Russia do this to themselves? Why would Russia try to spread the blame around and cause confusion? And what ultimately is the end result of such confusion? That's what we're looking for. Let's look beyond the right now and look instead at what is still to come. So, why would Russia damage its own pipeline and then blame somebody else for it? And I'm not here to say that's definitely true. I'm just here to say that is the leading theory. To kind of underscore this theory, here's another headline. This one is from the Eurasian Times, dated October 11 of 2022. And it says, Nord Stream attack. It's sabotage for sure, but fingers are pointing towards Russia's biggest critic in Europe. So, all right. We're reaching this place now where kind of everybody agrees that the evidence points to sabotage or warfare, right? Not an accident, a purposeful thing. But this article in particular doesn't blame Russia for it, does not blame the United States for it. We're now looking at other players as well. The specifics of the other players are not even the point, not even the important part. My point is that the closer we look and the more time we spend trying to figure out who did it and where is all of this point, the more complex it becomes. I think none of the players involved really want you to know what really happened, because as long as everybody's in a fog of war, they get to do pretty much whatever they want. So, what's coming? Why are all these major players operating in this secretive way? Maybe, just maybe, is to justify what comes next. Again, let's use the September 11th example. Do you remember what happened? Do you remember what the United States did almost immediately after that happened? The very first foreign policy kind of pronouncement and action to be taken, and it happened within just days of the attack. All right, we declared war on Afghanistan. We said they took their attack to us, we're going to take our counterattack to them. And then we spent 20 years over there until President Biden decided enough was enough, and then all of that fallout is maybe a conversation for a different time. But do you see? It's like not a mystery that one of the single best ways to justify taking military violence against someone else is when that person took military violence against you first, right? An attack unprovoked is almost never justifiable, but a counterattack in response to an attack is pretty much always justifiable. So everybody involved in this is looking for a reason to keep fighting. And if no one knows exactly who did this damage to the pipeline, then everybody involved gets to blame somebody else. And I believe that's where we're heading. Whatever is still to come is going to look back at this moment for its justification. And maybe, as we spoke about in the previous segment, maybe even that will involve nuclear weapons. No one has used a nuclear weapon since 1945. It's been a long time. It's been 2 generations. So for somebody to break those weapons out of their arsenal is going to require a big, big justification. Maybe we're seeing that justification in the works right now. So to round out this idea in the pages of the scriptures, I would like us to go to the Old Testament book of Daniel. We have looked at this before in previous episodes. I have a feeling we're going to come back to this frequently throughout the life of this podcast. But let's go to Daniel chapter 11. Because in Daniel 11, we see this paradigm in action. Now, quickly, as a reminder, Daniel 11 is a broad picture of human conflict from the Greek Empire, or actually the Medo-Persian Empire, all the way to the return of Jesus Christ. So deep, deep past tense history to still future tense history. And the very last conflict that this prophecy describes, which ultimately results in the return of Jesus, it begins by being described in verse 40 as the following. At the time of the end, the king of the south shall attack him, meaning the king of the north, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, horsemen, and with many ships, and he shall enter the countries, overwhelm them, and pass through. This superior response from the king of the north, and I'm not here to define who the king of the north is. We got into that a little bit in a previous episode. But we can just accept this is some sort of military state power, both of them, king of the north and south. Or at a minimum, they are the ideas relating, the ideas fueling the military and state powers. So there's a conflict. The king of the north's superior attack comes as a direct response to the king of the south's initial attack. But the language that we get, where the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, horsemen, and many ships, and will enter the countries and overwhelm them and pass through. That kind of a response isn't accidental or haphazard. It strongly implies that the king of the north was just waiting for something to happen. He had all of his guns lined up and all of his players ready, and he knew exactly what he was going to do, and he just needed an excuse. And as soon as the king of the south provides that excuse, game over. King of the north comes out, guns blazing, and doesn't stop until Jesus stops him at his return. Oh, goodness gracious. We got one more idea to look at in this segment. Please join me in Revelation chapter 13. We've gone here in a previous episode too, and this is another one I think we'll spend a lot of time in throughout the life of this podcast. Revelation 13 is a picture of the king of the north. That phrase is not used in Revelation 13, but when you kind of match all these prophecies together, we recognize both Daniel 11 and Revelation 13 are describing the kind of end of time conflict. And so the power that we read about in Revelation 13 would correspond to the king of the north, the dominant power at the end of Daniel 11. And it's described in this way. In verse 1 of Revelation 13, this beast that rises out of the sea is said to have 7 heads and 10 horns. And then he has crowns on his horns. And so that's how you know these are state powers, right? They have leaders like that, monarchs, so to speak. I am pointing out the fact that this beast has 7 heads. It's not just one beast. It's a conglomeration. Or, I mean, it is one beast, but it's not just one head. It's not one thinking power. It's 7 different thinking powers all joined together in a single body. And so anytime we're talking about this conflict at the end of time, the king of the north, or any of these conflicts that are leading up to the return of Jesus, we have to remember it's not going to be as simple as Russia versus Ukraine. This conflict happening over there right now is not the end of time conflict, or at least it's not the totality of the end of time conflict, because we are looking for I'm going to use a word that I know is politically charged, but I'm going to say globalist, insofar as it is global in its power, in its scope, and in its authority. We're looking at a globalist cabal, almost like a unity of powerful nations, or I'm going to suggest also churches and institutions, right? Because any human institution with power is going to be looking to hang on to and augment its power at the end of time. So when they all realize that they can come together and have more power together than they ever could separately, that's when this beast that is prophesied about comes into existence. And then the last idea for now that I hope to expand upon a couple segments from now is the latter part of Revelation 13. We actually meet a second beast. Not just the one with 7 heads and 10 horns, but a second beast that is said to rise up out of the earth, whatever that means. And we'll get into that in the future as well. But when we start in verse 11, Revelation 13, verse 11, we read, I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon. And and this is the point here, verse 12, he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. So we're looking for not only this kind of globalist cabal of powerful entities joining together, we're looking for a single entity that is powerful enough all by itself that it can mimic the power of that first beast, the globalist cabal beast, all by itself. And it exercises all of that power and causes, through its own influence, the entire world to fall in line with that first 7-headed beast from the sea. So we're looking for a lot of different players here, and it's just not as simple as one nation versus another nation. So right now, you're going to get tired of hearing me say this, but click that subscribe button, because I am leaving you with a cliffhanger. We have to know who is that beast from the sea. We need to know who is that beast from the earth. We need to know what they're doing and how to spot them when they come into existence. And we need to know how to understand the current events of right now as they are leading toward that ultimate final product. So hit the subscribe button, mark this page or wherever you found us, okay? And come back, because we have a lot more to talk about. God bless you, and we'll see you next time on There's Something Happening Here.